Okay, I'm all set. I got the what song up?
Okay, so Lost in Translation, which I've distractedly been playing in the background, but so Lost in Translation. So you said it came out in 2001. I thought it was later than that, but no, that's right. I That was a film that for me grew over time. I liked it a lot the first time I saw it, but it definitely did not feel at a pace with Virgin Suicides. But I mean, that might say as much more about how much I love Virgin Suicides or something, and maybe nothing was going to live up to that. But on subsequent viewings, I'd say I've seen it now probably maximum four times, three for sure, but maybe four times. And I think I've loved it a little more every time I've watched it. And I did watch it maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago, and yeah, I really enjoyed it even more than the previous viewing. I see it is a film that grows on me. I still probably like Virgin Suicide's best of her movies, but I mean it's a moot point because they're just both such great films. You know, I could watch both of them endlessly. So a lot of music in Lost in Translation. I think it's used quite differently in many ways than Virgin Suicides, and obviously it's very different type of music. There's no like 70s pop or anything like that. Completely different genres and all that. And you haven't written much about it before, so what are your thoughts on it? Well, and we should say in the book you chose Jesus and Mary Chain Just
Yeah,
Like Honey, which basically ends the film. So,
which I think was actually one of the last ones I added. I don't know why I overlooked it to
mm,
start. My reaction is basically like yours, Scott. It took me the second time. First time, again, large part, I guess, because of Virgin Suicides. I was all hyped for it. And I found it, there were certainly things I liked a lot the first time, but I found it overall slightly underwhelming.
mm,
Um, and I know this sounds crazy, but one thing I'm trying to remember exactly what I checked it to. And I know one thing that I thought was, um, as Kale would say, overly high minded, that they never had sex.
mm.
I thought like that's supposed to impress us that she's going to have this film. And that sounds crazy. I like what? It's just a stupid thing to think.
Well, I mean,
It's got nothing to do with the film.
well, actually, I would say I'm so glad that they don't, and I think it's what
Yeah,
makes it. I think there's a couple things in the movie that come close to happening, and that doesn't. And I think that's partly where the movie gets its power from, the fact that they don't. But anyway, go
yeah,
on.
no, absolutely. And it was just a dumb thing. Again, I think it's just sort of a Kale resistance to um, things that seem like okay, well, that of course it's going to
Yeah,
happen,
in real life, yeah.
and it doesn't happen. So what? I'm supposed to be impressed, but it was of course, it was the right thing. Um, and other than that, I don't, can't remember why I didn't like it as much as I ended up liking it. Um, Now, the one problem I think it's not so much a problem for me, but I think there's resistance to that film because of uh, whatever the treatment of Japanese people. You know, um, it, it just is it does it treat them in a way that makes them whatever? Does it fall into all these stereotypes and cliches? I don't know. I mean, to me, the title is significant. Um, I don't think it's in any way, shape, or form a mean film. I think it's more that this guy is here, and he there is a disconnect, to the culture and everything else. I guess, probably the worst offender, I suppose, is when the prostitute comes up to his room.
Yeah. Did you notice on that actually in our previous chat on Virgin Suicides? I find that scene so painful. I was actually trying to cover it up. It's a painful scene to watch actually, and I think it just like yeah, I don't know. There's just something about that. But
Yeah.
I'll actually just add to what you're saying. I mean, I actually had a friend, haven't been in touch with him in a long time, but he's a white guy like us, about my age exactly, actually. And I lived with him in Vancouver. And he moved to Japan for a few years to teach English. English as a second language or whatever. And he did say about Lost in Translation, he said the first time he saw it, he could not believe how resonant it was with his own experience, both of like, trying to sort of understand like the culture there. And even he said, and this is an obvious one, but he said from the moment where Bill Murray stepped in the shower and the shower head is like at his chin or something like that. He goes and he says everyone sort of has to get used to that. It's a very known thing. But yeah, I know you're talking about something a little more deeper, like how does it sort of depict. But I would sort of give the leeway that it is from the perspective of someone who's not going to understand Lost in Translation, and I don't think it's the director or anything just sort of making a commentary on. They shows a lot of the beauty of Tokyo and the scenery and all that as well, right? So
Hansen goes out, visits that whatever it is. What is it? It's like a Buddhist garden or something.
Right.
It does highlight the beauty and the peacefulness and
even the neon. Like I just love the street scenes.
Neon's incredible. Just right now, I'm watching.
Yeah, karaoke.
And that's got some amazing imagery. That whole night, when they go into the arcade, it's incredible. So yeah, I think there's a balance there. Like I say, to me, it's not ever a mean film. I think she probably in that with the hooker, she crosses the line maybe a bit. You might also say the director when they're shooting the commercial, which is a great scene. It's funny.
Yeah.
But maybe those couple times. Anyway, I did grow to love the film. Bill Murray's character, he's great. As I've said, I don't think he's maybe quite as great. It's a little more self-conscious or trying for an Academy Award or something. I think there's something more spontaneous about his character in Rushmore to me. But he is great. It's a great kind of middle-aged film. And Scarlett Johansson, she's fantastic. It's hard to believe when I watch it that it's the same Scarlett Johansson from Ghost World. Her character in Ghost World is just so cold and remote. And I don't think I've ever liked her as much as I do in this film. She's gone on to make some acclaimed films.
And that's only like her second or third film too, isn't it? Well, Ghost World.
I think she started pretty young. I think she was in other things.
Okay.
No, I'm guessing it was probably well along. It was certainly, I think, her first
breakthrough.
She got a lot of attention. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. So where were we?
Music.
Yeah, music. So it's got a lot of mood stuff. Outside of the Jesus and Mary chain, it's hard for me to think of individual songs. Although I guess a lot of it, some of the moody stuff was done by the Kevin Shields, right?
Yes, some of it. Yeah.
Okay. The first thing you have to mention, and we did talk about this, I think, in another conversation, is the karaoke scene, which has my favorite, where Bill Murray's singing "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding." Most people single out when he's singing "More Than This" by Roxy Music. You've got her Japanese friend singing the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, that's great. God Save the Queen, right?
The Queen. And she does a great job. And I've never really cared for Brass and Pocket at all. Even when I liked the first Pretenders album, that song never did anything for me. But she does a great job on it. She's got the pink hair.
Right.
So that's the first thing that musically caught my attention. Although I'm sure I was taken with some of the more moody soundtrack music. And I look over the soundtrack list and I'm not getting anything, Scott. There's so much.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's, I guess on like the more often I've seen the film, that I really like how she actually uses a lot of that music. Like I noticed that it's a movie, like in Virgin Suicide, you've got all the pop songs, and I kind of consider Samatin La a little bit different than the other air, because there is other air music that is just like pure score music, right? Like there's at least one sort of thing that recurs 2 or 3 times. But in Lost in Translation, I don't think you have any actual score music. It's all like sort of this indie pop songs. But what's really well done about it is that it's used in such a way that it fits so perfectly into the mood of the thing. And like a lot of these songs, like some of it is the Kevin Shields stuff, I think that was, probably commissioned for the movie, but a lot of it is just this stuff that already existed. And I actually say about Lost in Translation, it's like, it's in many ways, if you want to learn like how to be a DJ or something, watch Lost in Translation, because she really knows how to mix, or whoever's doing it, if she's doing it or has some assistants or whatever, but she really mixes this sort of disparate group of songs in, and it just flows so seamlessly. And like you'll hear these little fragmentary songs. Like there's a song I really like by this Square Pusher, you know, like this kind of techno artist, but it's a really mellow kind of organ type of song. And it's just like, you would think it's score music, but it's not. Like, it wasn't originally score music, it was a song. In fact, but two that I would actually kind of single out as sort of maybe just rise above that a little bit in terms of having just like commanding your attention a little more would be the and they're very similar. One of the very first songs, maybe the first song in the movie, is "Girls" by Death in Vegas.
Death in Vegas.
Song I never knew before, and it's just a wordless song. You hear like a female sort of breath over this kind of this, I don't know what you call it, almost like a spacey but jangly guitar pop sort of thing. It's really beautiful, and I think what's accompanying it is Bill Murray arriving in Tokyo, and he's in the back of a cab or something, and just
Gazing
lots of
out at,
neon lights and stuff like that. And it's great, and it sounds great, and it's just pure mood. And then again, very similar mood when they use "My Bloody Valentine," who's Kevin Shields, but it was from the Loveless album. When they used the song "Sometimes," and
sometimes, yeah.
that might actually be my favorite music moment in the movie. It's after the karaoke scene, right after, and it's late at night or in the middle of the night, whatever. And Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray are in the cab, and again, it's just like just shots of like the Tokyo skyline and stuff. And there's one funny bit where they're mostly focusing on Scarlett Johansson's face in the back of the car, and then at one point she kind of looks over and Bill Murray's like there asleep. And she just gets this kind of grin on her face, like, you know, oh, you can't handle it, old man. Yeah, it's good. But the music just, and it's a great song. It's actually my favorite song off My Bloody Valentine's Loveless, probably. So I was happy to hear that when it was in the movie. But yeah, I just like, it is different than Virgin Suicides that way. It's not about a lot of individual songs jumping out at you and sort of necessarily speaking to anything particular in the movie, but she just really knows how to capture the mood so well using all these songs that come from, you know, they're all sort of indie pop or whatever. Anyway.
Your memory's really good, Scott. You described both those, because I'm looking at the what song synopses or little one sentence descriptions, and for My Bloody Valentine, it says driving across the bridge and through the Tokyo streets, comes right after the karaoke, and Death in Vegas, gazing out at Tokyo from driving cab. Square Pusher have one of the two songs I kept on my hard drive from Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's one that would have been written, obviously, for the film. It's by Air, Alone in Kyoto, it's called.
Yeah.
Charlotte takes the train to Kyoto and walks around. Here's one that I don't. Did you know Rick James is in the film?
Oh,
Remember that
no.
at all? Yeah.
Not like Super Freak or something.
No, Love Gun. I don't know if that's the kid's song. And they also use some music from a Dolce Vita soundtrack music.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I think you've described the whatever I call it, mood music, but all those little fragments well. I did go with Just Like Honey, which just seemed like an obvious thing. It's used pretty great, and I thought, okay, this is kind of amazing. Last time I watched it, which I think was about, I watched it so I could write that comment, so you're probably looking at it a few months ago. I thought, wow, just the idea. Well, I mean, when that album came out, and I reviewed it for the Nerve, and it was such a, it was like a badge that, you know, you listen to a certain kind of music, and it was so far from mainstream music, right? We were working at the record store, and that was what I put on when I couldn't take anymore. Whatever, Robert Palmer.
Enough of you people.
Yeah, it's so self-righteous. Anyway, to think that would be used in this big film, independent film, but a film with Bill Murray and a film that goes in a wide release, and that this would become a key song in it. And that's one of the reasons I picked. I think, okay, she's really using, I always found the music from Virgin Suicide's interesting because this is all before she's born, or right when she's born. Sorry, she was already born. She's a kid and Godfather 1, the baby.
Right.
But this music she found out about later. But I'll bet you she was at the right age. She was probably as affected by just like Honey as I was,
Yeah.
She's really, this is autobiographical. This is her putting a song that and even I'm sure that applies to some of the stuff you've been talking about. She probably, those are favorite songs of hers. So I think the soundtrack for Lost in Translation is probably a lot more personal to her. And
yeah, I would agree with that.
Really comes through with Just Like Honey. And it's such a great song to put into that scene, and the way she gets the drum kick in at
it's great,
the right place, and that ending is one of my favorite endings because you don't know what he says to her. It's great. What do you think he says to her?
I don't know, but I like the way you framed it in your I think it's in your review. You quote the Led Zeppelin song, When I Whispered
in my ear.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
just don't know.
There's like, is it like, good luck to you, we had a great time, just don't forget, like, who knows, or like you're never gonna find out, right? Just a great mystery. She cries at the end
she
too,
cries,
right?
and I think she sort of nods her head, like, I understand. I think he's basically saying something to the effect that you are the love of my life, but unfortunately we can't do anything. We can't. I have kids.
Yeah.
I'm married and I have kids, and other than that, I love you.
By the way, this is going back, and it's not on the Just Like Honey, but I just have to.
What's on the screen here? Yeah. Go ahead.
I love the line. I think it's the first time they talk, or not the first time. It's one of the early times, and she tells him that she's what is she, like a philosophy grad or something? And he goes, "That was a great buck in that racket." a good buck in that racket.
There's small talk in the bar is great. Stuff he says, because he's the one thing about him in that film, even though he's this huge movie star, he's so shy, right?
Yeah.
When he's around her, he's just like he's really shy, but he says some funny stuff.
So Jesus and Mary Chain. So I'm just curious. You wrote the review of Psycho Candy and the Nerve, which I thought was a great piece at the time. How does that record hold up for you? Because I actually really like Psycho Candy. I've come back to it in recent years. I don't like the second half of it as much, but what would have been the first side, I can still listen to that once a year and really enjoy it. It's surprising that it does hold up, because it seemed like such a kind of almost a silly artifact of its time in some ways. Like a few years after is like, oh God, I'll never go back to listen to Psycho Candy again. And now it actually sounds really great. So,
I played it so many times then that it's one of those records that I just got sick of and stayed away from it for a long time. And then I think when you and I were doing the Facebook countdown, I said, I should check out some of these songs.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, the songs that I checked sounded great, and I ended up including Never Understand. I think
that's great.
And I still love that you captioned that photo, the Nerve photo of me with a quote from Never Understand.
Did I?
Photo Chris Buck took where I'm in front of my board with all my stuff that I used to tack up, and I've got the guitar, and you just had the tagline, something. It was a quote from Never Understand.
Never.
That was great.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I think at least half of it probably holds up great for me right now. When they try to, when they lose the melody on some songs, right, where they're intentionally trying to be noisy but without the melody and that stuff, I don't think does anything for me now. I can't even name the titles now, but there are songs on there that are just pure noise without the kind of pop song framework.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much of that on Psycho Candy, the later records.
Maybe only a couple songs.
Maybe a couple, but
half, maybe 3/4.
But even some of those ones, kind of like, what's the one about, I ride on my motorbike or something? There's just something about that greaser sort of stuff. It's just like kind of,
I'd have to listen to those again. But
yeah.
I know Never Understand, and oh God, I'd have to have the record.
The hardest walk has always been great.
There's so many songs that when I checked, they sounded great, and I ended up
Yeah.
on the side. And there's one that they did before. Is You Trip Me Up the one that they did before Psycho Candy? They had a single before.
Yeah, that I don't know. That I don't know.
I think it's You Trip Me Up, and that sounds great too.
I wasn't on to the Jesus and Mary Chain pre-Psycho, okay?
No,
I didn't have that Jesus and Mary Chain credibility. I'm sorry, like
I discovered that one later.
The early singles. Yeah.
I love the EP they put out with Taste of Cindy right after too.
Taste of Cindy is great too.
It was wasn't it almost all acoustic, the EP? Some Candy Talking, it's called.
Oh yeah, Some Candy Talking. Yeah.
And then they went into Dead Man's Curve, and I lost interest after.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. You would think that it wouldn't hold up at all. It's like a novelty record, but it really does.
Yeah.
It's surprising. I think Curcio gave it an A-. I think Marcus said he didn't get anything out of it. I can't remember if Chuck liked it or not. I don't
Probably. I can imagine he wouldn't have. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. I don't know. They hung around for quite a while, and I think they had a bit of a resurgence of interest. They were one of those bands like the Meat Puppets and Butthole Surfers, who after Nirvana, bands like that had a second life. Everybody became interested in them again, and I think they might have had a minor hit in the early 90s or mid 90s or something.
Well, and you have to think a lot of sort of bands of that ilk, even like maybe Husker doing replacements to some degree, probably didn't mind the payday they got from some of the movies that used their stuff later, right? So I'm sure Just Like Honey yielded someone a lot of money. And
replacements have been in not just Adventureland. They've been in 3 or 4 films by now.
Okay.
It won an Academy. Just last thing I'll say, I think it did win the Academy Award. It won the consolation prize. It won Best Original Screenplay.
She was nominated for a few though, right? Wasn't it?
I'm trying to remember if she was nominated for Best Director.
Was Bill Murray nominated?
Bill Murray was definitely nominated, and he lost to. I think he lost. I always make a joke out of this. The Italian actor who gave the completely ridiculous.
Was that in the comedy Holocaust movie? Is that what that is? Or
Robert
Benigni or whatever. Yeah.
Chairs and everything. I think the feeling was that Bill Murray was going to win for sure. But I can't remember if she wasn't nominated. It was nominated for Best Director and lost, or just was passed over and they gave it screenplay instead. And people thought at the time I think Lost in Translation just put this to rest, but there was all these rumors at the time that her father really directed, was the real of Virgin Suicides, which is kind of ridiculous.
I know that is ridiculous. It's a little bit like Kurt Cobain, basically wrote the first whole album or something like that, and
it's crazy.
I've subsequently read that actually Kurt Cobain, off topic, but I've subsequently read that Kurt Cobain actually learned a fair bit about songwriting from Courtney Love because she had such a good pop sense. So anyway.
I think she was in bands before him.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that Francis Coppola gave her lots of technical gave her lots of technical advice, but the idea that the Virgin Suicides, it bears no resemblance to any film that he's ever made at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that's a woman's film. Like you can't see it any other way. So okay. Anything else on Lost in Translation? Or I
don't think so. It's a film I'll watch every 5 years or so. Those ones I like to go back to.
Yeah. Okay.